Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today, I have a very special guest named Heidi Ramsey. She's an instructor for the FBI National Academy, was a state trooper in Ohio for 23 years. You guys, when I tell you the amount of people that I have talked to that have been impacted in a positive way by Heidi Ramsey, it's a long, long list. And there are a lot of people who are very excited for this episode, and I am equally as excited. So, welcome to the show, Heidi Ramsey. Thank you so much for being here today.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it. And I think I have a lot of people to apparently pay who are excited for this episode. So I appreciate you having me.
Of course, and it's funny because we talked in the past, we were preparing for this podcast, but I ask for referrals. So after I have conversations with people, I say, who else do you think would be a good fit for this podcast? The amount of people who said your name is a lot. And so it's something to be proud of. That means that people were impacted by your story. They obviously thought about you as someone who would be a good, guest and share words of wisdom. So thank you for being here. It's honestly an honor for us. But I do want to talk a little bit about you. You have a fascinating story. So you were an Ohio State trooper for 23 years. You're second generation. Your dad was also a trooper. So give us a little bit of background on how you got started in this career.
Well, so the funniest thing is that I never intended to be a trooper. Obviously, my dad was a trooper. He did 31 years. The last 3 years of his career, he was the colonel. I mean, he was the boss. So I didn't want to go into the patrol because I didn't want to be treated differently because of my dad, either better or worse. So I actually went to college on a full basketball scholarship and ended up playing softball as well. So my whole college career was just, play, practice, travel, go to school, repeat. As soon as basketball was done, then I was going into softball. My undergraduate degree, believe it or not, was in religious studies. So my intention was to graduate from college with my bachelor's degree and then go to Lutheran seminary and become a Lutheran minister. But towards the end of my college career, I was so burned out with school that the last thing I wanted to do was go to school for 4 more years. So
Mhm.
that's when I submitted my application to the patrol. I did not tell my dad that I submitted my application, but it took him about 10 minutes to find out. The rumor mill is very strong in most agencies, but Ohio especially. I say telephone, tell a friend, tell a trooper, and word spreads pretty quickly. So he found out. So I went into the academy in May of '95. I uh, graduated in November, and I go out and I start working the road just like most of us did, trying to figure out how to drive fast, cut the median, run the radar, lights, sirens, radio, everything without hurting myself or anybody else. And I'm going along and loving life. And I decide that I need to put myself in a position to be ready for promotion when the time came. So I was working midnight shift and decided that I was going to go back to school. Went back to get my master's degree in business administration, graduated with my master's degree. So I was going to school in the evening, working overnight, sleeping during the day for the most part, studying whenever I could. Graduated with my master's degree, swear that I'm not going to go back to school, but within a year ended up going to law school. I was an instructor at our academy at the time, so I had at least a day shift schedule, weekends and holidays off. But I was going to school in the evenings again. So I graduated from law school in 2005, took the bar exam. I'm a certified attorney in Ohio also. I'm a cop with a law degree. I wanted to be able to teach our legal classes at the academy. So it was the next thing, right? I'm all about, okay, what's the next thing? Now, I share that because, like, from 1990 when I started school to 2005, all I did was work and school uh, to the detriment of everything else. So I never got married, never had a significant relationship, never had kids. I didn't even have a cat, which most people would peg me for a crazy cat lady, but I didn't even have that. Now, work-wise, as soon as I was eligible to start considering the promotion process, I did. So start the promotion process for sergeant, take a class, go to the assessment center, make the promotion list. Now, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get promoted until my dad retired, but I could at least do the process. Now, when you make the promotion list for sergeant and lieutenant, they have what's called a geographical preference. So I could go into the computer and basically tell the promotion board where I am willing to go to take a promotion. Now, I lived around Columbus, Ohio at the time. So if I wanted to limit myself just to areas around Columbus, I could go in and pick just the areas around Columbus. But there's another box on the geographical preference that's called statewide preference. We call it checking the big box. That says you'll go anywhere in the state to be promoted to sergeant or lieutenant. So that's what I did. Every single time I was eligible for promotion, I said I would go anywhere in the state. My dad retired in June of 2000. I got promoted in July. And I was like, they kept me at the academy as an instructor. Great. I'm in law school, day shift, weekends and holidays off. At least I've got a normal schedule. Now, at that time, you only needed 1 year as a sergeant to be eligible to test for lieutenant. So as soon as I got that year, I test for lieutenant, make the promotion list. And again, geographical preference, I say I'll go anywhere in the state. So I'm sitting in my office at the academy one day. It's around lunchtime. I'm minding my own business. And the colonel at the time comes in and says, "Hey, Heidi, let's go for a run." Now, it wasn't unusual for the senior staff to be at the academy at lunchtime. They would come in to either eat lunch, work out, whatever. But there weren't too many of them asking me to go for a run with them. So I knew this probably was going to be a career conversation. And sure enough, we get a mile away from the academy, and the colonel says, "Oh, congratulations on, you're making the promotion list. But I see you said you'd go anywhere in the state. Do you think that's realistic?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you've been at the academy for a while. It's very difficult for somebody to go from an administrative position into an operations position. You should really think about getting field experience." Now, I knew several people, kind of list in the back of my head of a lot of people who had gotten promoted with very little field experience. But I said, I said I would go anywhere in the state as a sergeant. You all kept me at the academy. Uh, if you want me to get field experience, transfer me to a post. I'll get field experience. And that's what happened. So now I'm back to a post, working midnight shift again, going to school in the evening, sleeping during the day. So back to that grind. Do that for about 2 years, then get promoted to lieutenant up in Northeast Ohio, where it starts snowing around Halloween and it doesn't stop until April. And doing my thing up there, I get transferred back down to the post where I was getting my field experience, and everything above lieutenant. So there's a staff lieutenant rank and then captain and above. It's all at the whim of the colonel. So it could be an interview, it could be an email saying, "Hey, who's interested?" And we're picked from that list. It could be a phone call. "Hey, you're going here." Okay. But there's no rhyme or reason to it. But you know where the next openings are going to be. And I'm thinking, yeah, I've got 3 years almost as a lieutenant. I'm looking for the next thing. I'm looking for the next thing. And then 2008 happened. So 2008 is like, if you imagine you're walking down the street or walking along the sidewalk and you're looking around and not paying attention, and bam, you hit a crack in the sidewalk and you end up falling and end up on your back looking up at the clouds going, "What the heck just happened?" That is 2008 or in my career. So in early 2008, I found out that my midnight shift sergeant had been having an affair with one of his troopers. He ended the relationship. She got mad, claimed that the only reason he ended the relationship is because now he's having a relationship with the midnight shift dispatcher, and she can prove it. She allegedly had an audio tape of the dispatcher performing a sex act on the sergeant in the dispatch area.
Um,
Now, How she got this audio tape was she took the belt microphone from her in-car camera system, activated it, and hid it in the shredder box in the dispatch area. Now, that's a felony in Ohio. It's a felony in most places. Uh, she found out that that's a felony. So obviously that audio tape never materialized. But now the story's out there. I can't just let it go. I got to write it up, send it up the chain of command, and send it into headquarters, and they start a big internal affairs investigation. Now, when they're doing that internal affairs investigation, they're basically investigating everybody. So me, my sergeants, my staff lieutenants, captain, everybody. They're trying to see if we knew about it before I wrote it up, like we were trying to fix it on our own.
Mm.
Now, I didn't. I wrote it up as soon as I, as soon as I heard about it, I wrote it up. But so while they're doing that, they're checking our emails. So they're checking emails that I sent, my sergeants and everything else. And while they were doing that, they found emails that I sent that made it look like I was having an affair with my captain. Now, I am not going to sit here and say that had that opportunity presented itself, that I wouldn't have taken him up on it. I absolutely would. It just didn't get to that point.
Mm.
But I did. I sent emails that I shouldn't have sent. So one Friday afternoon, I'm driving down to Chattanooga, Tennessee with some friends of mine. We're going to do a bicycle ride in the mountains. And we stopped for lunch at a Cracker Barrel. So I'm standing in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel. Nothing good ever happens in the parking lot of a Cracker Barrel. That's universal. That's lesson number one. But I get a phone call from the operations major, and he tells me that I'm to report to his office on Monday morning at 8 o'clock because now I'm the subject of an internal affairs investigation for conduct unbecoming. Needless to say, it was a pretty crappy weekend. So I go, and on Monday morning, I'm told that for the duration of the investigation, basically going to be assigned out of a cubicle in headquarters. And there's probably nothing worse that you can do to my type AAA personality than stick me in a cubicle in headquarters with nothing to do.
Mm.
And anybody who's ever been the subject of an internal affairs investigation knows you're pretty much toxic during that time. Nobody talks to you, nobody gives you any information about the investigation, which I don't even care about, but I can count on 3 fingers the number of people who reach out to even ask me how I was doing from a mental health perspective.
Mm.
Now, halfway through the investigation, I get called in for a second interview because they found 2 emails on my in-car computer. Out of the thousands of emails that were probably on this computer, they found 2. One from the midnight shift dispatcher and the other one from this trooper who had kind of started this whole thing. And the header on the email was Yo B. Yo B. Right? And they called me in and they said, Lieutenant Marshall, we found these emails. What does the B stand for? I'm like, I don't know. Well, what do you think it stands for? I don't know. Paige, you want to take a guess? What do you think it stands for?
I don't know. Is it a bad word?
Seriously? Jess? Come on. What do you think it stands for? Is Jess on here? Is she being recorded
She's
too?
here. Yeah.
I am on here, yes, and I'm not
Okay,
sure.
so Jess, what do you think it stands for?
I mean,
Seriously?
my mind goes to bad word.
Okay, yeah. That's bitch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to censor that. If you're not going to say bad words, that's very good. That's very good of you. I have no problem saying bad words. I said, I don't know. And they said, well, what do you think it stands for? I'm like, I don't know, bitch. And they're like, oh, you let your people call you a bitch? I said, well, they didn't call me a bitch. It just says yo B. But I was never one, good, bad, or otherwise. I didn't get hung up about titles. I didn't get worked up about that stuff. I didn't need you to send me an email that said, good morning, ma'am, good morning, lieutenant, and it was just on my in-car computer. Nobody saw that except for me. They didn't do anything unprofessional while we were in public or in front of other people or anything like that. I didn't get worked up about that. So it wasn't a big deal for me. Somebody one time said I should have said that the B stood for boss. It's like, dang it, that's a much better B
Dang
word.
it.
And it would have totally changed the trajectory maybe of the story. But it's like, darn it.
You're
My
like,
B words were
beautiful.
not flowing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful
beautiful.
boss.
Or,
Neither were
yeah,
ours.
yeah, bubbly or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So, so fast forward, August 8th of 2008. It's a Friday. If you're going to fire somebody in an organization, it's probably going to be on a Friday at 4:30 in the afternoon. August 8th is a Friday. 4:30 in the afternoon, I get called into the major's office. There's another major sitting in the office. That's what you call a clue. And I'm read a letter being told that I'm being terminated from the highway patrol for conduct unbecoming and allowing my subordinates to treat me in a derogatory manner, which I didn't know was a thing because it's not a thing. They made up the thing.
Mm.
Give us your badge, give us your gun. Your car's out in the parking lot. You can leave it there because another lieutenant's going to take you home. And that's what happened. Now, by this time, my mom and dad were retired full time, living out in Arizona. So they weren't around. I have a sister. She's 2.5 years younger than I am. We get along, but she's not necessarily somebody I would call, especially back then, if I needed something. She had 3 young kids of her own, with the fourth on the way. Like she's got her baby. She's due the end of August. So my nieces and nephew. But my dad's trying to call. I'm not answering the phone. Another friend of mine's trying to call. I'm not answering the phone. Those two people know if I don't answer them, something's probably not right. So they call each other.
Mm.
And then my dad calls my sister and says, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but you might want to go check on Heidi. Just see, see what's going on." And probably another 45 minutes, or if I was an alcoholic, I wouldn't be here right now because I was sitting in my garage with a bottle of wine and a bottle of sleeping pills, and I was going to kill myself. Because in my messed up head in that moment, I'm thinking, how am I going to call my retired colonel father and tell him that I just screwed up so badly that I got fired from this organization that he gave 31 years to, that he gave, I was at 13, and the shame and the embarrassment and all the shenanigans that were getting ready to happen in my head at the time, I thought what the only way to eliminate that was for me to be gone. But then my sister comes walking up the driveway with my nieces and nephew in her baby bump, and it flipped a switch in my head. So now instead of thinking, well, what would, you know, what's going to happen with my dad, I thought, well, what would my nieces and nephew think if Aunt Heidi wasn't here anymore? Because that was the closest things to kids that I had, because I never had my own. So obviously, spoiler alert, I didn't go through with it, right? I'm still here today because I didn't go through with it. But what I also didn't do was I didn't tell my sister what I was thinking about doing. My mom and dad came home for a week or so. I didn't tell them what I was thinking about doing. It took me 8.5 years before I shared that story with anybody. Now, in Ohio, or for us, lieutenants and above do not have union protection. So, in order for me to fight the discipline, I would have had to stay fired, hire an attorney, sue through the state. 3 days, the following Monday, I get a call from HR. Hey, we're going to make you an offer. We're going to give you your job back. But you're going to be on a 2-year last chance agreement. So, no same or similar offenses for 2 years. You're going to be transferred to a post within 35 miles of your house, and you're going to be demoted from lieutenant to trooper. And I took it because I didn't want to sue. I didn't want to stay fired. I didn't want a long, drawn out fight. So I didn't know how successful I would be. But more importantly, I did. I sent emails that I shouldn't have sent. I was wrong. So I just wanted to move on.
Mm.
So that following Tuesday, I go back to being a trooper. I was like, don't forget where you came from because you never know when you're going to be going back, right? That's lesson number 2. Yes, you're keeping score. Cracker Barrel, don't forget where you came from. Because the people you pass on the way up are the same ones you pass on the way down. If you want to be a jerk to people on the way up the chain of command, they can make your life pretty miserable when you're coming back down. So I go back out, and you would think that maybe I would change my perspective, maybe focus more on me. I just kind of went through this ordeal. Everything I was doing was centered on the job, maybe refocus. But if anything, I came back, I was even worse because now I'm out to prove everybody wrong.
Mm.
You just told me that I couldn't leave my post, right? Um, so now I'm out to prove you wrong. So the first thing I did when I got to the post was put in to start the sergeant's promotion process again. So now I'm going through a process I'd already been through, a process that I was involved in in recreating and revising. And so I go through the promotion process, do the class, finish that, go through the assessment center, make the promotion list, geographical preference, check the big box. 3 days after my last chance agreement expired, I get promoted to sergeant for the second time, and I'm sent to Northwest Ohio. And I'm up there for my first day, and the district captain comes down and says, "Oh, Heidi, welcome. And we're happy to have you here. Do you have any questions?" I said, "Yes, sir. I have one question." See, now by this time, you had to be a sergeant for 2 years before you could test for lieutenant. Well, I already had that from the first time I was a lieutenant, or from the first time I was a sergeant. So it was August. We start the lieutenant's testing in September. Can I take the lieutenant's test? Now, every agency has policies that are named after people. Anytime there's a policy change, it's because something happened and now we have to revise policy. I knew there was nothing in policy that was going to prevent me from taking that test, but then they changed policy. So now that will not happen again. So all the promotion, demotion policies for the Ohio State Highway Patrol are now named after me. So if somebody gets in trouble and they get demoted, they have to wait that time starts over. But they had to let me take the test. So I take the lieutenant's test, pass, go through the assessment center, make the promotion list, geographical preference. I check the big box again. I wait a year and I get promoted to lieutenant and I go back down to the academy. I spent another year and a half there, and then I get transferred into labor relations of all places, which is like the circle of life in a career. And I'm doing labor relations. I do that for about a year and a half. I end up getting promoted to staff lieutenant and staying in labor relations. But towards the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, I'm told two things. One, that so our human resources is split into two sections. We've got labor relations, which is what I was doing, and we've got wellness benefits. The benefits guy is getting ready to retire. So when he does, Heidi, you're going over to take his place. Great. And you're also going to get the chance to go to the FBI National Academy as a student. So as I'm getting ready to go to the National Academy in October of 2016, I'm getting ready to register for classes, and I'm looking at the class list, and I'm like, well, I'm going to take classes that are related to this wellness stuff that I'm getting ready to do. So everybody has to take a physical fitness class. So I'll take that. Stress management, I'll take that class. That sounds good. Emotional intelligence, that sounds like good class. Found out I have a lot of emotions, zero intelligence about those emotions. And then, oh, there's this class called Leading at Risk Employees. That sounds good. So on the first day of this Leading at Risk Employees class, I go in, and one of the assignments is to write a paper about an at-risk employee and what happened and how was it handled and how would you do things differently given what we talk about in the class. And I thought, well, what better at-risk employee to write about than myself? So for the first time, I sat down at a computer and just started typing, and 12 pages later had that story. A lot more detail, but that story. And I submit it to the instructor, and he says, "Oh, Heidi, this is a great story. Who have you shared this with?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding? You're sharing that story? I want people to think I'm weak. I don't want them to think I can't handle my stuff. I can't want them to take my gun, send me for a fitness for duty." All the excuses that we make or that we hear for people not getting help. And he says, "Well, that's all fine and good, but you don't know how many people you could help just by sharing that story." See, everybody has something that has happened over the course of their life or career that affects them to this day. That just happens to be mine. But we don't want to talk about it because we don't want people to think we can't handle our stuff, or we're the chief, we're the boss, we're this. My God, we have all the answers. Baloney. If anything, you share that story and maybe it plants the seed that, dang, just got through that. Maybe I can too.
Yeah.
So I shared that story for the first time in the National Academy. It took me an hour to tell it. I cried the whole time. Graduate from the National Academy. Swear I am not telling that story anytime when I get home. I told my mom, I told my dad, I told my sister, major players in the story, right? So I tell them, but I'm not telling anybody else. But then in 2017, the state of Ohio mandated trauma-informed policing training for every officer in the state. And when we looked at the lesson plan, a lot of it was how to interact with victims, witnesses, suspects, the general public struggling with mental health issues. Very little about officers who might be struggling with mental health issues. And I wanted to incorporate some of the things that I got from the National Academy. So addiction stuff and resources and suicide, because we never talked about those things before. So I put together an hour-long block, and I was the last hour standing between them and their ability to go home. And I've got an auditorium of 300 troopers and sergeants, all ranks, and I had a resources slide up on the board, and it's the last thing, and I just blurted out that, yeah, I use these resources. I know they're helpful because I was sitting in my garage in 2008 with a bottle of wine, a bottle of sleeping pills. I was going to kill myself. And it was like crickets in the room. And I'm like, crap. Like, first of all, I've got like 14 more of these in services. I can't just tell the first group and not tell everybody else. Tell a phone, tell a friend, tell a trooper.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm thinking, what are they all thinking? So I blow it off with a joke because that's what I always do. Be careful, drive home, claim your overtime, get out of my building. What I was surprised about were the number of people who were surprised that I had gotten to that spot because we're all good at flipping a switch, right? Hey, Paige, how you doing? And Paige's answer is always going to be,
Fine.
I'm fine,
I'm
right?
fine.
And I'm standing there going, Paige, please say fine, please say fine, please say fine. So I don't have to listen to the 15 minutes of crap that you've got going on at home or at work or whatever, when I should be the one listening to that because who else is going to? So they were surprised about that. But the other thing that was shocking was they understood because they had been there too. That's a problem. That's a problem because we don't know about those people. You don't know what the person next to you is struggling with. So, needless to say, everybody that year got that story, sworn, non sworn, everybody. Now, I had basically told the colonel that I would go anywhere in the state to get promoted to captain. If there was an opening, I put in for it. If there was an email asking for interest, I put in for it. A staff lieutenant transferred out of the academy. The major asked me to transfer over to the academy, leave the wellness space and transfer to the academy. I did it, right? I did it. The captain of the academy ends up announcing his retirement. I'm thinking, man, maybe this is my shot. Maybe I got passed over for these other positions because they're saving me for the academy. Well, then I get passed over for that. Okay. Passed over for another position. So 6 or 7 positions, I get passed over for captain. And I come to the realization, yeah, I'm probably not getting promoted. If something interesting comes along, I'm going to entertain it. I'm not actively looking for a job, but if something comes along that I'm interested in, I'll look at it. Now, our full retirement is 48 years old, or mine was. They've changed it for new people now. 48 years old, 25 years of service. I was 46 years old with 23 years. Okay?
Mm.
I had the opportunity to go back to the National Academy and be a guest speaker in a couple different classes. And in May of 2018, when I was there, they came up to me and said, "Hey, Heidi, there's a contractor position open here at the academy, teaching for the National Academy. Would you be interested?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And they said, "Well, do you have a resume?" I pulled my thumb drive out. I'm like, "You got an email address? I will send you my resume right now." And I did. And I went back and I told my major, I said, "Hey, look, there's a chance that I could be getting a job offer." He said, "Doing what?" I said, "Teaching at the National Academy." "Well, you wouldn't take it, would you?" "Yeah, yeah, I would." Because there's nobody at the FBI Academy who knows my dad, right? Or knows that relationship. He never worked there before. I can screw stuff up just as easily on my own. I don't need anybody's help. right? It was time for me to do something for me,
Mm.
to sink or swim on my own, not because of anybody else, not because of what happened 17 years ago or whatever. It was time for me to do something for me. So I ended up getting an offer. I retired 8 years ago tomorrow, June
Wow.
25th of 2018. I retired and started at the National Academy on July 1st. Now, fast forward, July of 2019, session 277 starts. And the seating at the academy is it's auditorium style seating, about 50, 55 seats in each room. And up in the third row, there's a 56-ish-year-old retired Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, 20 years in the Marine Corps, 18-year captain with the Pentagon Police Department. He's got his perfect Marine Corps resting bitch face going on, right? He's just got that look about him. He's got a laptop computer, a Diet Mountain Dew, and a bag of Cheetos. It's 7:30 in the morning, right? And he introduces himself. He says, I run on Diet Mountain Dew, Cheetos, and hate. And I'm like, all right. But he also raised his hand on the first day and he says, I'm going to be your problem student. And it turns out he's still my problem student. So on September 13th, they graduated from the academy. And after they graduated, he was talking to some people about a graduation party that was happening in Northern Virginia. And he asked me if I was going to this graduation party. And I said, no, I wasn't planning on it. And he said, well, do you want to go? And I said, sure. So, Jess, question number 2. Do you know what happens when you feed a stray cat?
They always come back.
They always come back. So he calls me his stray cat because he fed me on September 13th and I never left. We got married March 20th of 2021, right? We got that bling right there. Bam, 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 bam. We've got 8 acres of land in Ohio where we've got a barn. We'll eventually build a house and retire out there. He's getting close to retirement. He left the Pentagon. He's now the deputy chief of the FBI police department, so the uniformed officers at the FBI. But he's looking at retirement, at least within the next year. We've got 2 doxy poo dogs, so no cats. Even though I'm the crazy cat lady, so I'm the crazy dog mom. And life is 150 times better than I ever thought it could have been when I was sitting in my darn garage. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's all sunshine and rainbows. It's just different perspective. I think everything happens for a reason. First of all, it gave me perspective. I was getting promoted pretty quickly, but going back to being a trooper gave me perspective. It gave me the ability to see just how poorly as an organization we were treating our people and how much I didn't want to do that. Right? The troopers, the sergeants, even the lieutenants, the boots on the ground, the dispatchers, people doing the job every day. We needed to treat them better. But it also, I was getting promoted pretty quickly. I might not have had the opportunity to go to the National Academy. Definitely wouldn't have gone when I did. So had I not done that, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to be an instructor there or gotten the opportunity to meet my husband. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's great, but because prior to June 12th of last year, me getting fired and demoted was the worst thing to happen to me. But on June 12th of last year, my mom passed away after a battle with dementia. So then that becomes the worst thing, right? So that's the other ring I have. That's in honor of my mom. And my sister has little sausage fingers, so it doesn't fit her, but it fits me. So rock on. Thanks, Mom. Uh, but she was the strongest, most stubborn German woman that I know. But I don't get to that dark place like I was in '08, right? Because she's in a much better place now. I know she's still watching down over me, telling me to suck it up, quit doing that, right? Uh, so you just learn how to cope and utilize those positive coping mechanisms and things that, I talk about now every day. I miss my mom every day, but we keep moving forward.
Mhm.
So that's just a different perspective that whole experience. I don't recommend anybody going through that kind of job trajectory, but at the same time, it almost had to happen because that's what got me here today. So there you go. That's the Cliff Notes version of how it was, kind of what happened.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
I told you guys when we started this that this was going to be a great conversation and that Heidi had an amazing story. And so thank you for sharing everything. And
mhm,
um, there are, I think, are more lessons in here than you've given credit for. Cracker Barrel for sure. Don't forget where you came from.
right?
Um, there's strength and vulnerability in sharing your story.
Hmm.
And you can have an amazing life after tragedy. You can get
Hmm.
through tragedy. And of course, there's more than that, but those were kind of the four key ones that I wrote down. And my question for you, because I had a very similar experience happen to me in the sense that I had someone kind of call me out and ask me to share my story and all the things that I had been through in my life. And I had the same reaction as you. I was like, no way. What do you mean? Like, I'm perfect. Everything's good. I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And the moment I did start opening up and showing that level of vulnerability and sharing my story, even though it's absolutely terrifying, and it is hard to share in front of a room full of people because I think everyone in this profession, for the most part, has resting bitch face. So when you're sharing it, it is tough, like, do they hate me? Are they, are they resonating? Are they not? Um,
Hmm.
but for me, I think it allowed me to heal a lot and it allowed me to change my perspective on strength and vulnerability not being weakness. And I think it became kind of a superpower. Did you feel that way? Like when you did finally start opening up, I know you said it was 8 years before you told anyone your story. Now that you are sharing your story openly, do you feel like that's been something that has helped you to get through those hard times?
Yeah, so talking about it helps you process it. Like I
Mm,
said, I mean, the first time I told it, it took me an hour. Obviously, the recent part wasn't part of that story, right? It just ended kind of right there with the patrol stuff. But I cried the whole time. Now, obviously, I can get through it, and I can get through it without getting emotional or crying about it. Sometimes I get emotional depending on who the audience is, especially if I talk about my mom
yeah.
because that's more recent than the other stuff. But yeah, it helps you process it. But then, after going through the National Academy was really, I knew that it would help me professionally, but it helped me much more personally than I ever thought it would. Because then it was more about, you know what, I need to start taking care of myself and putting a perspective where it should have been. Because I had work at number one, and that's all I was focusing on. So my priorities were out of whack. When I started focusing on me and focusing on my family and realizing that they were more important, that those are the people who are going to be there when the job no longer is, then that's when things became a lot better. Things became a lot easier. And I was able to process things a lot quicker. Now, ironically enough, the class I'm teaching for the National Academy now is the leading at-risk employees for executives. So, the class that helped me so much when I went through the National Academy myself is the one now I'm teaching and hopefully helping other people along the way. So, putting kind of my own spin on it, but challenging people to have that vulnerability in a safe space to be able to share that story and probably their story. So, the most rewarding part of that is people say, you know what? I wasn't going to talk about my stuff until you talked about your stuff.
Mm.
Now I will talk about my stuff. And that prompts other people to talk about their stuff. Or I wasn't going to talk about this when I got home, but I talked to my chief and I'm ready to start sharing my story with other people. So if that resonates and that helps other people be vulnerable, then that's great. That's what it's all about. The more people we can get talking about that stuff, yeah, it's terrifying. And yeah, there are a lot of tears and it's hard along the way, but that's just going to help you get stronger and get better as you move forward. So that vulnerability is huge. You have no idea.
Yeah, and I really believe that conversations can save lives. And I really believe that the more we share, to your point, we give other people permission and safety to also share. And you
Yeah.
said this earlier, everyone has gone through something.
Hmm.
We've all gone through hard stuff at varying levels. We've all gone through hardships and trauma and different things that impacted us in a big way. And so, anyone, like, I'm actually now, maybe it's because I've been in this space for a long time, I'm a little more weary of people that are like, I'm perfect. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
No,
I don't know. I don't believe it. Like
no.
I feel like we all go through things. And the more that we're able to share that with each other, I do think it has an impact on other people, especially those that are afraid or uncomfortable sharing their own story. And so I think that you have impacted more lives than you know, or ever will know. Not everyone's willing to come out and
Mhm.
say that. And so I love the work that you're doing, and I really appreciate you being willing to be vulnerable and share your story.
Thank
It's very
you.
inspiring, your story, and that you made it through to, sometimes those hard times lead to the better times.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Just ask my husband. He's happy.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, is he
Yeah.
still living off of Red Bull and Cheetos, or did
Diet
you?
Mountain Dew.
Diet Mountain Dew. He's gotten
Is that
rid
what
of.
it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not so much Diet Mountain Dew. He enjoys an occasional Cheeto, but now I think it's more tacos and margaritas. Not so much hate. Not a lot of hate.
That's good. It's because he
We took
found
the
you.
Cheetos, but we got rid of the hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But tacos and margaritas, how could anybody be upset? How can anybody have resting bitch face with tacos and margaritas? I mean, like, come on.
100%. So
Yeah.
now you're full circle, you're teaching for the FBI National Academy. Obviously, you come on platforms like this, you share your story to help others.
Mhm.
What does the future hold for you? I know you said that you have land, you have doggies. Are you still planning to teach for a while? Give us a little bit of insight into the future.
Yeah, so our eventually we're gonna build a house on our property. We've got a barn there now, so we have a place. I mean, we can stay in there, and because we got a motor home, and it's set up nice, and we'll eventually build a house. And the plan is that my dad will move in with us. We're about 45 minutes south of him. The property is 45 minutes south of him, over in Ohio. So that's, probably going to be a shorter term goal than ever. I'd like to do a few more years with the National Academy, as long as they keep renewing my contract and keep letting me teach in the space. It's a fantastic work environment. I mean, I can't say enough. I mean, I have the best job in the world, to be able to do what I do, and the people who come through are just fantastic. And so to continue to do that, and once that chapter is over, then hopefully continue in the same space, either teaching on my own, or I've got a couple other entities that I work with. Aspirant Consulting out of New Jersey is one, and they're expanding over into Ohio. So having more opportunities to do that, and have some things coming up with them. So that's exciting. So whether I just work from home and travel from, all I need is an airport to be able to travel around and still continue to speak to groups and have fun. I mean, right now I'm in a hotel room. This is not my I'm in Tallahassee, Florida, as I'm recording this because I taught all day today to a group of executives in a leadership seminar from the for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So, yeah, having the ability to do that and get out and talk to executives and law enforcement officers around the country is, again, I got the best job in the world. So I'll continue to do that as long as my brain holds up and my voice holds up and my fitness level holds up, and until my husband says, "Hey, stop, we just got to retire." But somebody needs to keep paying for farm implements and building a house, and so I figure I'll do that. So
I honestly think that this is such a testament. I think we have to ask ourselves why, when we're talking about wellness and the efforts that we're putting in this space. What is the ultimate goal? What is the why? What is the mission? And everything that you just talked about, that's the goal for everybody. How can we put in resources and initiatives proactively so that you can get to the end of your career and you can have a long retirement and be excited about it?
Mhm.
And everything you just talked about, that's the dream. How do you get there? How do we make sure that every single person in this profession has the opportunity to get there, where you can do whatever it is that you want in retirement and still have life left in you to live? And so, um, I think that you are a walking example of what we are trying to accomplish. I have two final questions for you. It's kind of a twofold, but you said earlier, at the end of that presentation that you were doing in front of everyone, you said, I know all these resources work because they worked for me. Can
Mhm.
you maybe just outline some of the resources that have worked for you that you would recommend other people taking advantage of? And then I'll ask my final question after that.
So, the biggest thing that I was trying to get across, especially back then, was that, we have these resources and there was very little training about them. You get like 20 minutes at the academy, especially employee assistance program. So, uh, every agency, every entity around the country has an employee assistance program. Unfortunately, people don't trust the employee assistance program because they think it's a direct pipeline to management. Right, wrong, or otherwise, that's just what they think. So back then, I utilized EAP to find a counselor, right? To find somebody else to talk to try to work through a lot of those, issues that I was having. And that was helpful because I wasn't going to be able to fix me on my own. Obviously, I wasn't doing a very good job of trying to fix me. So having somebody else to help navigate that was huge. So that's what I encourage people to do now, right? If you don't do anything else, like if you don't want to talk about it to a family member or a coworker, find a clinician. Find a clinician who specializes in trauma, PTSD, first responders, stress management, and also who specializes in EMDR. So I push EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, as a trauma technique to help people process those events so they can think about it and talk about it without reliving it over and over and over again. Uh, Extremely helpful for first responders. I call it voodoo, but again, it helps us process those events without dwelling on them. So having those clinicians, uh, somebody that you can talk to. Now that looked a lot different 16 years, 18 years ago, however long it's been now, right? Than it does now. Now there are a lot of different clinicians who have the EMDR. I 16 years, I didn't have anybody. I just went to whatever random clinician would see me and take my insurance. Now you can find those people who are culturally competent, familiar with law enforcement. Uh, I encourage anybody to look for those resources in advance. So if somebody comes to you with an issue, with a problem, that you have those resources above and beyond what your EAP program offers, just in case they don't trust it. So that was the biggest thing for me, was having those, because I didn't trust a whole lot of people. I didn't have a too big of a circle, and I didn't want to talk about it, beyond that. So, and in that first 8.5 years before I said something about it, really having somebody else to talk to was huge. And so that's my main recommendation as far as those resources go.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You.
Mhm.
You've shared a lot of really good wisdom here. If you were to give one piece of advice or words of wisdom to our younger generations, what would it be?
One is always keep moving forward, right? There is nothing that happens that is too bad that you can't get through. That, yeah, there might be shenanigans and there might be a lot of stuff that's going to weigh on you, but it's always going to get better, right? You just got to keep moving forward. We all have a lot of mistakes ahead of us, no matter how old we are. We got a lot of mistakes. All we can do is own up to it, own up to them, and try not to make them again. right? But it doesn't define who you are. It doesn't define what your future can be. It doesn't define the type of person you are. Just own up to it. How, what, fall down 6 times, get up 7? And you just got to keep getting up and keep moving forward, because I promise down the road, it's going to help you. It's going to be okay. And then I do have one more thing aside from that. Keep moving forward, but also, because Jess, you need a lot of words of wisdom. Always bet on yourself. Don't underestimate the good that you can do in any space. A lot of people, especially in law enforcement, they're afraid to switch jobs. They're afraid to retire. They're afraid to do something else because they don't think they know anything else other than this job. You've got so much more skills, so much more you can do in the public sector, in the private sector, and everything else in that space. Don't hesitate to bet on you. Had I not done that, I wouldn't be here, right? I bet on myself to be successful and did what I could do to be successful, and I was. So don't underestimate yourself and always bet on you. So there you go.
Thank
What
you
else?
for sharing. Your
Love
story
it.
really is inspiring.
I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate you both. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.